right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode number 25 of the Clever Dummies Podcast. As always, I'm joined by Anik. How are you going today, brother?
I'm good, my man. I'm good. It's good to be here doing this podcast, as always. There's been a couple of hiccups here and there. Our last episode absolutely went to shit. So technical errors were to the max, but, nonetheless,
Mate,
it is what it is.
Like, if you would ask anyone in the industry, if anything like that happens, we shouldn't talk about it, but I feel like we need to. We spent nearly 2 hours on, we went balls deep on one of our best ever podcasts, and the current platform we're, hosting on, called Zencaster, did us dirty. But hey, water under the bridge. But mate, it's just like at the gym, bro. There's reps. We're just doing reps. We're building up. We're getting stronger. So it is what it is. It might actually give us a good chance to do a part 2 of that episode. So hey, what can you do, baby? But we seem to be so all good so far. About 40 seconds in, we're all right, mate. So we'll see how we go.
Awesome. How's everything been? What's cracking?
Super good, mate. Everything's been great. Working, super busy at the gym, super busy at the golf course, obviously juggling 2 jobs. But, bigger than that is the commitment of marriage, and more so the commitment of a little baby girl. Obviously, little Abby just turned 11 months. So, I've said this multiple times before, people are weird for celebrating month anniversaries of kids, but when you have a kid, you realize how friggin' special it is. So you almost you celebrate every day. But yeah, 11 months, she loves her daddy now, which is good. And then, so she's nearly a year old. She's so close to walking. She's so close to talking. So more of that to come. But mate, life's been very busy, but very good, bro. So yeah, no complaints over here, man.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Wonderful to hear. Well, today we've got a guest, a friend of mine.
What about you, mate? You've been upset with any government authorities at the moment, or what's going on?
Well, it's been good. I had I think that I spoke about this last episode, but we skipped that, so I'll speak about that again. I went through a little bit of a self-imposed downward spiral because I moved back to Sydney, and I was just almost just creating my own resistance and fighting just my situation. I'm like, I hate everything. So I got out of that, which was a lot of fun. And as soon as I got out of that, everything felt awesome, great. I was just like, overall, life is pretty incredible. And apart from that, my new job is starting to pick up. It's actually a lot of fun. It's actually a lot of fun. At first, I was like, I don't know if I like this, but now it's actually a lot of fun. And on top of that, my company Zero Media is doing fairly well with getting new projects, and when you fall into the rhythm of managing multiple things, it feels awesome. So it's kind of good. I mean, apart from my car getting rear-ended 3 times in the past 3 months, I think everything's great and phenomenal. It's not much I can say.
That's right, mate. You can't win them all, eh? But anyway, that's another day, another episode, as we always say. We've got a very special guest today, mate. I'm going to leave the introduction for you today, but take it away.
Awesome. Well, Haylie, say hello. First of all, I've known Haylie from Melbourne. I would say probably 2.5 years. Obviously, we haven't seen each other for 2.5 years, but I think we've known each other for 2.5 years. We met on common grounds of fixing problems. Most of the time, Haylie created the problems that I was fixing, but that's besides the point. We won't talk about that. I thought.
Jeez, he's laid down the gauntlet early.
Wow, thanks so much for having me.
No problem. But by all means, Haylie was a pleasure to work with. So and then she recently started a business, got married, and I saw she was doing a whole bunch of steps at once. I was like, what, we have to talk to Haylie on the podcast, because one thing we love at the Clever Dummies Podcast is taking a whole bunch of steps at once. So. Hello, say hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the introduction.
It's good to have a civilized voice on the podcast, I'll tell you that much. A bit of normalcy.
We've only just started.
Well, that's right, eh? We'll peek behind the curtain, as you will. But no, absolutely pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. You can be totally honest here. How many episodes have you listened to so far?
I have listened to 0, but that's okay.
Yes,
hey, all in the spirit of honesty, right?
Well, that's exactly right.
Exactly.
Hopefully, it's just like any great conspiracy theory. Hopefully you go down the rabbit hole after this one. So
I think I will.
Yeah,
I'm convinced.
We'll see how we go.
The key here is, this is what I always say on the podcast. We've had more guests on the podcast than actually listeners. So, hey.
Yeah.
But it's generating more listeners.
Yeah, well, that's right. Like, well, mate, pull up the Spotify numbers and we'll figure it out. But anyway, it is what it is.
It is what it is. That's right.
No, okay, well, let's give a little bit of backstory to the listeners. And I mean, even more so for me, like, how did you guys meet? Where did you guys meet? And is there like a funny story to that?
Oh, I guess every day when we saw each other. So we worked at the Alex Theatre together back when I was working in Melbourne at the Alex Theatre. Haylie actually didn't work for the Alex Theatre. They worked for this ticketing company that was contracted into the Alex Theatre. Mega giant. I mean, I probably shouldn't say their name because they'll probably sue us. It's Ticketek. It's Ticketek.
Well, those guys are superstars over there, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So, the good thing about Ticketek is, I'm sure they won't mind me saying this. They suck, right? They genuinely do. They can't organize anything for shit. Their ticketing system is subpar, and just overall, they just no good at anything. Honestly, they were running an integrated ticketing system. So, wow, I'm really going at it. Anyway, so Haylie worked for them, and she was kind of the person, like accounts manager for Alex Theatre, and she would come in. Would always be, there'll always be something going on. We'd have 500 people lining up, and it'll be Haylie at the box office trying to manage that all. And that while the theaters aren't actually working because we had the seating completely wrong. So I'm there, like, undoing the whole seats, and and the best part was, throughout the whole thing, was Haylie would just look at the customer and just smile. She'd be like, "Yeah." They'd be like, "Ew," and she'd just smile at them. I was like, I don't know how you do it. So
I'm glad you remembered that about me. That's nice.
It was. That's why I think it was a very memorable thing. And I always used to joke around to one of my friends, Terrence, and I was just like, she's like the CEO of positivity. Like, we need.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, it wasn't really until there was this one time we had a massive show on, and there was people lining up, and Haylie was nowhere to be seen. I was like, wow, what do I do? Because I was essentially like an event manager there, so everything. And then when I say event manager, really what I mean is I was also running the lights. I was pouring drinks, basically doing everything. That was kind of the vibe of the place. Yeah, so I think we built a rapport over common suffering. I think that's the best.
Probably so. I think there was one time that I came, and it was probably that day that I wasn't there on time. Just had too many things on my mind and completely forgot that where I was meant to be on the day. And Anik was just at the computer, like, doing the ticketing system, and I was like, oh wait, why do you even need me here? But you were doing a great job holding down the fort.
To this day, I was so impressed. I was like, how the hell do I even know this? I'm so impressed.
I was shocked.
At the end of the day, Anik will sacrifice customer experience for efficiency any day of the week, so it is what it is.
100%. I could care less about customer experience.
That was great.
Oh shit! All right, so like we got to unpack that a little bit. So, I mean, we can be specific because we are a freelance podcast. Like, whereabouts are we talking in terms of logistics, and like, when did you guys first meet? And like, there was a fair few experiences that it sounded like was explained there, but what was your first memory, or like, if you go back the first time that you think about Anik, does anything come to mind?
This is tricky. I think I remember meeting Terrence initially.
That's a big call. Going back to that customer experience thing.
And then I don't remember. I think Anik showed up and introduced himself, and I'm sure there was a few jokes in there, one or two, and we hit it off. Yeah, it was great.
Of course there was jokes in there, naturally. That's so funny.
But I don't remember the specific moment, which is quite sad, actually.
That's actually so. I kind of don't. I think it was more like just a gradual. I think you would have come. I would have seen you on a shift where you were covering for someone, and then eventually kind of just like working there most of the time. I think that's what would have happened.
Yeah,
I think so. I'm pretty sure my one of your memories that I have is asking, "Hey, did you want a chalk top?" Because I do remember that.
And I
I do
probably said
remember.
no, right?
Yeah, you said no. So
Worst decision. I should have said yes.
should have said yes to those chocolate caramel.
I should have. Yes.
And time frame, what are we thinking about? Like 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah,
Two and a half, 3.
2019. 2019.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yes.
2019.
Couple of years. So obviously, fast forward maybe 6 months from that stage, maybe a little bit further, we get to March in 2020. And of course, you're in Melbourne currently at the moment. Both Anik and I are in New South Wales. He's in Sydney. I'm in the mid-north coast. But what is sort of the last period of time, what, I don't know, 15 months been like for you,
Sure.
particularly in your industry as well?
Sure. Yeah. So it's been, I feel like everyone has heard what it's been like in Melbourne. And I think if you haven't been in Melbourne, it's hard to describe it. Obviously we're just slowly coming out of another lockdown now, about 15 months later. And that's been quite tricky and exhausting and tiring and all the words that you could think of. It's been intense, especially in the events industry. Obviously, it's based on people gathering together and being together in either a big space or a small space. Yeah, so it's been tricky. So I was working at Ticketek during that time, and my hours were quite significantly reduced, which is completely understandable given the time frame and everything that was happening at the time. And then I had a short stint in real estate because I thought, my hours are getting cut. I need a job. I need to support myself. And I was also planning a wedding at the time. So I was like, I really need to be doing something. And I like to be busy. I don't like to sort of sit there and not have much to do. So it was tricky, being stuck at home. We were living in a 1-bedroom apartment at the time. It was all kinds of horrible.
Was that a qualification that you got during COVID, or was that something you had sitting sort of in the back pocket, the old late play?
Yeah, so it was sort of something that I thought, my cousin worked in real estate and I was talking to her about it and she was still working, the old cousin, that's right. I was like, you've got something I don't. So I decided I'm going to go get my certificate in real estate. I did that, smashed it out as quickly as possible and I had the time to do it. I did that and started searching for jobs and was lucky enough to get one in the leasing sort of world. So yeah, that was something definitely that I'd never sort of seen myself doing before, but was quite a cool opportunity to get during COVID and, with the world being locked down, actually being able to go and open houses and be out and about was quite nice rather than sitting at home not doing anything at all. So
that's beautiful. When are we talking? Because I know for a long period of time, particularly when you're in leasing, you're showing people houses, you're finalising people's rents, background checks, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. When did the rental market take a dive as well? Like, did that pick up as people were able to, I guess, were you involved in the virtual world of showcasing houses as well?
Sure. So I started in real estate just as things were slowly starting to open up again. So we did have caps on how many people we could have coming into different houses, which was quite challenging to manage in terms of, X amount of people are super interested in a property, but you can only have 3 people walking through. So that was tricky to manage, but also created quite a demand for houses because not many people could go through. So it was slow at times, but it was busy at the same time. It's a really weird thing to describe. It was a bit, it's different. Like there wasn't as much hype around it because you've only got 3 people going through properties, but also that demand was quite high for them as well. But I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
It's like supply demand. You're spreading the demand out. If the supply is being spread out, but so is the demand as well. So it's just like a slower pace. But
that's it.
Hey, that's really interesting. Are you still doing that now?
No. So now I finished up in January or December, I think it was. I finished up in December and started my role in January. I'm now working at the Athenaeum Theatre, which is a theatre on Collins Street here in Melbourne. Beautiful. So back in the event space, back into similar to what I was doing before. So working with clients and ticketing and events. So it's good. It obviously has its challenges with COVID, but it's what I love to do. So
that's what I was going to say. It's what you love to do. It feels more like home, right?
Exactly. It does. It feels like second nature, which is fantastic. Get to do what Anik was doing, work in the venue side of things. So my inspiration.
He's our inspiration, isn't he?
How are you finding working on the venue side of things compared to working outside of the venue?
Sure. I I'm finding it really good. I'm finding it different, obviously, because you're sort of managing things from a so for example, when I was working just in ticketing or for a ticketing company, it was managing a lot of different clients at once for different venues, whereas this is sort of being specialized more in the venue and understanding like the lighting and the sounding, the production side of things, which I'm quite interested in, even though I didn't think I was going to be. I was like, oh, it's really cool how that works, and sort of the front of house and just seeing how things work from a venue perspective. I think if you've not worked in a venue, you might not understand exactly how it works, which is really cool to see. There's a lot of things that I was like, oh, of course you've got to think about, this element and that element. So that's been really fun to learn. And also just, I suppose, having an expertise in understanding exactly what the venue has to offer and that sort of thing, and working with clients in that way is quite fun. Like, I'm enjoying that, and lots of different people with lots of different ideas for shows and that sort of thing has been really fun, I think. So yeah, it's been good so far. It's only been about 5-6 months, but I'm enjoying it so far. So it's good.
That's beautiful. It's just like any role, really. The more you can take on, or at least have an understanding of people's responsibilities and how the greater scheme of things works, the more you can excel at your own role, and I guess potentially further facilitate growth in that industry as well. And you almost care, like, it's just like anything, the more effort you put into something, the more you care about it as well. And
100%.
even though your mole right still may be limited to what you're specializing in, as you garner and you become empathetic, like I always had managers, particularly I worked in bars after high school, nightclubs, that sort of thing. And I was like, these managers are freaking dicks. Like, I hate my manager. Then I started to understand what the hell they were going through. And I'm like, oh man, if I had known that back then, I would have been a lot less of a dick myself as well. So yeah, it's all the learning experience, I guess. But anyway, it is what it is. That's right. So, I mean, you mentioned before that you got married. Is that true?
I did. It is true. You have not been told a lie.
The rumors are correct. When did you get married?
The rumors are correct. I got married in March, which I hear somebody else got married in March too.
Oh no! What was the date?
The 4th of March.
Oh, so good. It's an even number. Yeah, I got married on the 12th, which is very good. So yeah, good period of time. Like in a week. Where did you get married?
We got married at a place called Avalon Castle in Cockatoo.
Yeah. Oh,
very
Castle.
Cool suburb name. Yeah, Castle as well. All the things going for it. Yeah, but they were actually genuinely lovely. We had to change our date 1 or 2 times.
Yeah, most definitely.
Lovely about it, so it was great. Everyone tells you it goes super quickly. It went super quickly. It was awesome. It was a lovely day, but it just goes so quick. I don't know if you had the same experience.
Yeah,
but it
was so surreal the whole time, wasn't it? Like you were enjoying it the whole time, and it's just like anything. You're enjoying it, so it does fly. You're like, man, I wish I had more time to take that in. Especially because the last 18 months I've been stressing my bloody hair out and losing friggin' hair. And what?
That's it.
How many people did you have?
We had, I think, 55 people.
Yeah, nice. We had about 50. That's a good number.
There you go.
Not too stressful, like perfect enough to make it a party, but not enough that you're worrying about too many crazy back in. Yeah.
Exactly. That's it.
No worrying about the wild cards,
Oh, that's it. You can keep them to a little. Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
That's it. No, it was great, and we did have a little bit of a panic there because we had the 5-day short circuit lockdown in Melbourne.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we weren't sure if it was going to happen. We had family and friends, some key people that we needed to get here from Queensland. We weren't sure if that was going to happen, but thankfully everything went off all right. So that's good because I think that was the main thing that's a bit selfish, but the main thing I was worried about with the lockdowns, I was like, but my wedding.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because we were meant to get married in April of 2020.
Okay.
So that's kind of 3 weeks before it all sort of shifted gears, and my wife and her mum were really ahead of it and called it before it was forced upon us, and I just had the blasé, nah, she'll be right. And then a few days later they made us move, so I'm like, it kind of makes sense. But we found, like, kind of in December, January time, we were like, shit, we've got to replan this thing, because we did basically 90% of the groundwork leading up until April, and then it got pulled and it was hard to kind of get going. The thing that I found that was the most stressful out of everything, I mean, there was the time-consuming element of putting all the little pieces together, like people and tables and those sort of things. But for me, that was the most stressful part, is like, I'm so much thinking about everyone else. Like I didn't even think about myself, but I was like, oh, if I put this person in this table and if I invite this person, it's weird. Like it's almost like you kind of wish in a little bit that you wish you had it again because you'd focus on the things that are the most important. But in saying that, like you kind of want everyone to enjoy it as much as you were as well. So that's what makes the experience of the wedding so like immersive and it just so overwhelming, right? Because there's just so many variables, other people, other things.
For sure. Yeah.
So
and
many people at my wedding hadn't met each other as well. So I'm like, how's this going to work? And
yeah. Well, we had a bit the same. Like, a lot of people that knew each other, but then those sort of few people that didn't. And it was like, where do I put these people? Like, I love them and I know that they're going to get along with like everyone that loves us as well.
Yeah.
Where do I seat them? They don't know anyone else. It's tricky.
You don't want them to feel bad. It's like, oh, I got put on this table with his nan. Fuck, nan. It's like, no, trust me. My nan's a savage. Like, you want to be with my nan.
That's it. Exactly right.
Shit. How did you go about selecting your, what's the maid of honor? Is that like your best man equivalent?
Yeah.
Was
best
that a
man,
tough decision?
Best woman.
Yeah.
So I kind of played it cool in the sense I didn't have like a maid of honor. I had 3 bridesmaids and they were all bridesmaids.
Right on the fence there. That's beautiful.
That is the most cheeky way to do that.
Well, but honestly and genuinely, and Anik, you know me, so like, come on. But like, I just couldn't. I was like, I love these people equally. I couldn't possibly put one on a pedestal and not like. And genuine, like being genuine, I loved all 3 of my girls. So who ended up being technically maid of honor, who did a lot more for me in terms of like putting together the hens night and that sort of thing. She was great. She just sort of took it and did it. Her name is Jess, and I studied tourism back in the day with her, so that was really fun. She was my bridesmaid, and then I had a girl named Mari, who's my husband's best girlfriend, who lives in Queensland. So that was a bit panicky there for a bit, not knowing whether she was going to be able to get there or not, and everything. And then I had my best friend from high school named Monique. So it was good. It was lovely to have them there, and it's all very surreal having a wedding, and it's funny. It's like it's happened, but it feels like it's just. Didn't even happen. I don't know. It's such a weird thing to describe. Yeah.
We're very lucky we've got Google Drive now to store it all on. But did you guys get a photographer?
We did. We did. We had a photographer.
So good, wasn't it? Worth the money. Like it was a lot of money, but my gosh, it wasn't worth it.
Yes. Well, that was one of my so I had 3 main things that I wanted to like spend money on. It was the venue, it was the celebrant, and it was the photographer. Because obviously with photos you can keep them forever, and that's really what I wanted to keep. And I was talking to my mum about her wedding, and she's like, we had to select like 30 photos to print, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like 700 photos. This is awesome, and I get to keep them. I'm like, sorry, Mum, technology.
Oh, that's so good. We had like so much just really cool uniqueness to ours. Like for us, ours is on the 12th. On the 11th, we actually got officially married at our house.
Oh, wow.
So we had our celebrant come over, do like an intimate little presentation, I guess, with my family and a couple of friends. But so my dad was actually the unofficial announcement on the day, so he was the one on the MC, and he did such a good job. I was so proud of my dad, and it was just the perfect role for him. We knew that he was the right man for the job, so that was really cool. It was really heartfelt, and I mean, the guy we end up picking for our official ceremony would have done a great job, but I had this weird thought of like I just wanted no strangers there. Like even so, I actually got married at my own workplace as well, where the golf course I work at do venues, and I got married there. So I was like,
wow,
like everything was like really comfortable in that regard. And that's the one thing I was worried about. I was like, am I going in over my head here? Like what happens if I get married at work? The thing it did, and it helps that I like my job, I guess, but the thing it did is it made me really comfortable. I knew where everything was. Like I knew sort that out, I knew every little detail, so it was really good in that regard. And also for me, like me and Nick had made a promise in high school about being each other's best mans, but even to this day we're still best of mates. So I mean, Terrence was one of my bridesmaids. Oh my God, one of my
gosh.
He could have been, actually, with the hair that he has. Like he could do whatever he wants. But he was one of my groomsmen. So there you go. And then Terrence was, Nick was my best man. So no, that was beautiful as well. And my wife made her own dress. She actually physically made the entire thing. Made my daughter's dress. Yeah, she's pretty special. So very happy with how it all went down. So
that's amazing. I love that. That's so good. And I love that you got married, in a place that you were comfortable, and she made the dress, and it was like everything sounds like it was perfect. So that's
right.
amazing.
And Nick even made the comment as well, like it had a laid back feel to it, but the staff was still there doing a professional good job, and it just kind of kept it clean and everything like that, didn't it, bro?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what you want. There's a sense of pressure that there is on weddings, particularly. And this is coming from someone who's not even close to getting married. So, but I understand. I have a strong understanding of human psychology. It's something. It becomes very much about put on a show kind of situation, and whether you want it or not, that kind of just says social pressure makes it so. So it was really nice that it was something it was kind of like what you wanted and Charlotte wanted. So that's what made it nice. And so, whether you guys were chilled and, so was everyone else,
it wasn't internal pressure. It was more internal than external, but it's still, I guess, it derives from the same place too.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, I thought you guys were pretty chill, like all the way through. It was just, a lot of fun. And, a couple of times I was just like, is she gonna crack? Is she gonna stress out? I was like, she didn't. I was like, no,
she's like that as a mum as well. She's next level. So yeah,
it's
so good.
really impressive, And then I was just like, all right, I was just like, who's gonna be the loose card of the night? Because there's always one. Right? There's always one. Luckily, it wasn't me. Nor it was Tran. So that's pretty impressive. So I was like, who's it going to be? And surprisingly, no wild card showed up. So
yeah, well, that's the beautiful thing about having 40 to 50 people is like you try to iron that out and like, hey, sorry, COVID, bro, like we couldn't invite you. There's too many people, like So that's how it goes.
And sure, I had to step in and take down a couple of people, but we won't talk about that. That's fine.
No, we won't. I mean, like you did your speeches. You were the best man, so like you had to handle that best man shit. But hey, anyway, it is what it is.
It was a lot of fun.
Didn't he cry? Is the real question.
No, he tried to, but there's no tears under there. Like me too as well. I tried to fabricate it during when my bride was walking down the aisle. I was like, I'm like, fuck.
It's not working.
So I know it's not working. It's broken. It's broken.
Really, did you cry?
Me?
Yeah.
I didn't actually. I was super proud of myself. Sorry, my
didn't ruin the makeup.
Was a wreck. No, and I did my own makeup too. So I was proud of myself. I was like, this can't be.
That's impressive.
I was too worried that somebody else was going to make me look like somebody that I am not. So yeah, I was walking down the aisle and I was all smiles, and I think it was a shock. Like, oh my gosh, everybody that we love is here, and my husband did all the crying for us, so it was good.
Oh, that's cute. What's your husband's name?
My husband's name is Mason.
Mason.
Yeah.
Well, tell Mason we said hi, and he's lucky to have you in his life.
Did we? So is that Mason's last name as well, Tran? Or maybe I shouldn't give out names. Or
no, that's okay. My last name is now Tran, which for those people listening, I'm actually Australian. Like my parents are European, so I don't look like my last name should be Tran.
Vietnamese?
Which is actually
Vietnamese?
Yes, so my husband's Vietnamese Chinese. And I've had a lot of fun so far of confusing people when they see my last name and expecting, people when they see that last name, they expect a particular looking person, and I show up and they're like, no, we're looking for Haylie Tran. And I'm like, that's me.
How good's your accent? No, you're right. Just joking.
No. Well, I'd leave that to him.
No, that's beautiful. That's so good. And I guess, I don't know, I don't want to make it too personal, but it's an interesting question. Like, was he born in Australia? Did he move to Australia when he was young? Or
sure, yeah. So he was born in Australia. Yeah. So, it's interesting because a lot of people ask him that, and he's like, I'm Australian. And they're like, but where are you from? And it's like,
sure,
Australia. Yeah. So it's always an interesting topic, and it's something that we talk about too, because it's like one day we'll probably have kids and they'll grow up very differently to what I did, because I didn't have sort of the particular experiences because I'm white, and they'll have different experiences because they're Asian or part Asian. So it's a very interesting thing to.
What was it like the first sort of initial getting to know his parents and that sort of thing? Was it?
Sure. He speaks with his.
That's a big question.
Yeah, and she was. I think she was more nervous than I was. Like, she was
that's
lovely,
gold.
and she's been
That's
lovely,
beautiful.
since I've met her. And I think she's just not super confident with her English. But I'm like, it's okay. Like, I can understand you. We can, have fun. And she's lovely, and his whole family is lovely too. So it's good. It's good. We get along well, and I love his grandma as well, even though I can't communicate with her. It's funny. I'm like, I need to learn this language so I can speak to his grandma.
She
She's
makes
great.
good eye contact, so nice.
She does. She does indeed. She can
And,
say hello.
currently I'm working. The company that I work for is originally started in China, so I kind of work with a lot of that culture. Like almost it's so funny enough. The owners of the company that I work for is a Japanese. The wife of the owner is Japanese and the husband Chinese, so from Hong Kong. So they actually don't speak each other's language, and they've been together for so many years, and it's brilliant. And kind of being around that culture, right? It's so interesting because obviously I've had friends who've been of Asian ethnicity, but all of them grown up in Australia, right? So first time being around people who actually grew up in that culture is so different, and it's so interesting because they go from hyper protective to like to telling me off. I'm like, hold on, I'm an employee. They're actually surprisingly really caring people. Like, not surprisingly, they just have that nature, which I feel like I don't want to say that, I don't want to take away anything from the Western society, but I think there's a different style of care that culture carries, and it's kind of it's quite pleasurable actually to be around that.
Amazing.
Totally.
They're very family orientated, and it's great. Like, just to see them together, they really band together and really care for each other, and it's lovely.
Yeah. One of I had two, like I had multiple. But my best mate Lawrence, he was Philo, and one of my other good mates, his name was Chin, and he was Vietnamese. And every time he'd go to their party, like I think it was 12, 13, 14, around that age, and he was just like there was like cousins he hadn't seen for years. Like there was 40 or 50 people at a 12-year-old's birthday party, and it was just it felt, and they were so welcoming as well. But it just felt so beautiful because you knew how family orientated again they were, and how lovely it was that was the precedence. And I was pretty lucky that I was brought up in a pretty decently loving Aussie household, but there was like so much rivalry unnecessarily as well, and we were living separate lives, and look how good we're doing. These other guys were not these other guys, but my best mates their families were so, like, they worked harder than anyone else. So they were business owners. They had PhD, like they were doctorates as well, but they were just so caring and loving for each other that it felt more as like you were in a more family orientated atmosphere, less about
there's definitely a more integrated family orientation. In particular, that side of the world. And what I find interesting is one of the things that talking about hardworking, right? And I noticed this, and I was talking to someone about this the other day, right? And I said, the gym that I go to, right, has basically, I can't believe this is turning into a race thing. But anyway, so the gym that I go to, right?
Oh, there's only one race, mate. The human race. It's crazy, yeah.
So the gym that I go to in Marsden Park, Auckland, has about 90% population of either East Asian or West Asians, or basically from either Pakistani, Indians, Chinese, Japanese, Filipino.
50 countries in Asia, 100%.
Yeah, 50 countries in Asia. But maybe you every now and then you'll see like, no offense, guys, one white person, right?
couple of Aussie fellas.
Not offended.
What did you used to call them? Oz dogs?
I realized I was like, well, it's interesting because it's just a different way of, like, they have a different mentality, like, even on a public holiday, they like, where I'd take a day off because, I'm like, yeah, they're still there. So it's a completely different, it's a very fascinating mindset. And to be honest, I actually, I always thought that side of the world was really interesting. I mean, I'm really into like the Japanese culture out of all of them. But yeah, I always find that fascinating. Anyway, it's a little bit of a tangent about race, I guess.
No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, my friend.
It's nice to be able to talk about it without, talking about more political issues. I think it's nice to have a chat about it when we're just talking about what characteristic a particular nation has. Anyway, moving on from that, one of the things I guess I was kind of excited about, because I can't talk about marriage. That's why I was quiet the whole time, because just saying, guys, if you guys know anyone,
You
please
try
do
your
introduce.
best.
Please do introduce. Um, Moving on to, I know this was past couple of years were like a pretty past year was pretty interesting years, to say the least. I mean, obviously it was tough for everyone, but obviously you kind of not only survived that, you kind of seems like you thrived, Haley, right? And I think I can kind of say that as well. Like, I mean, there was few things that I did I was quite proud of that I would have not done in on normal circumstances. And I know recently you've kind of started, you've been dabbling with starting your own business, right?
I
And
have.
that's something I was really excited to talk about. I was like, because I've kind of gone through the process, and I get pretty hyped up every time someone steps into that realm of entrepreneurship, because then I could be like, finally, my people.
Yes.
So let's let's get into that. Like, what kind of was like the initial thought pattern? You're like, oh, let's do this, and like, if it helps, I'll kind of start you off. Like, originally when I came up with the idea of like starting my company, and which was very different from what I do now. But original idea was, I was like, well, I just don't like the way people do things. I want to do them more interesting and more, more aesthetic, in a more aesthetic way, and a more, loving, and a more, more loving way, if that makes sense, right? I wanted to bring like almost, kind of like a care aspect to business, and that was my mindset when I started. So yeah, like, what was it for you when you're like, oh, let's start the business, and you know, um, what? Yeah, let's answer that, and then I'll have the
Sure,
next question.
sure. I think it goes back a little bit further than that. For me, I always knew that I wanted to start something, but I didn't know what to do. I was like, I have this drive, I have this passion, I want to be able to build something, I want to start my own business, but I have no idea what I want to do. And I think that was really frustrating for me for a long time. I was like, oh, I have this passion, I have this like enthusiasm to want to start something, but I have absolutely no idea like what I could do. So I found that really difficult. Hello. Yeah, I found that really difficult to know what to start exactly. So it took me maybe a year or two to know and figure out like what I wanted to do, or sort of understand, what are my skills, what are my strengths, and really thinking about that. To know exactly what to start. So I was doing a little bit of sort of random work here and there on Airtasker, and sort of doing freelancing and just trying a whole bunch of things just to see, what I liked and what I was good at. And something that I've always, which sounds really funny, but something that I've always really enjoyed doing and been good at is typing. And I type well and fast, and I was like, oh, this is really cool.
What's your word record per minute?
My word record is 140, but I average about 120.
Stop it.
That's actually really good.
That's
Really
ridiculous.
good.
Which sounds a bit nerdy, but
Average,
that's all right.
yeah, that's ridiculous.
Which I don't mind.
That's actually pretty insane. That's actually incredible.
I think,
Average is at like, average for people is like 37 or something like that.
Yeah, that was after 10 coffees. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's funny. I remember when I was about 6 years old, my dad bought a typing program, and what was this? This was like early 2000s, and he's like, sit down, you're going to learn how to type. And I was like, this is so lame. And now it's like the best thing he ever did. I was like, thank you so much for this skill. Like, I write emails so quickly, and I can do things so much quicker than I would have been able to otherwise. So, I hated it back then, but I'm very proud of it now. But anyway, I decided that I wanted to, I had done a little bit of transcribing work, which is very sort of niche.
Sorry to cut you off.
That's fine.
Now it makes a lot more sense. I used to be walking past, and Haley used to be on our desk and be like, la 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 la, and I was like, surely she's pretending. But now I'm like, nah, she was like typing away. She was like writing essays. Okay, go on.
I was thinking, like, for me, like, the speed is not nearly comparable, but when I type or I message on my phone, I feel like I can closely relate to my thoughts. When I write, because I was writing so slow, or even speaking, sometimes I would catch ahead of myself. I feel like typing or writing on a keypad is as close to equivalent as the way my brain works.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
For sure. Yeah, I guess writing is like a lot slower. Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know. I find that, it's good to be able to, think and type at the same
Smash.
way.
Yep.
Smash it out. Exactly.
Yep.
I love that you remember that, Anik.
Yeah.
Continue on. I just, I was like, I remember that now. Right. Continue on.
He's like, why was she ignoring me? No, she was just like deep in thought in her typing escapades. So I'd done a little bit of transcribing work, and essentially what transcribing is essentially like audio to text. So there was a podcaster, like that had popped an ad on Airtasker, and they wanted somebody to transcribe, and I thought, oh, I could do that, and I reckon I could do that pretty quickly. So I contacted her and sort of put in a bid for that, and was able to get the job. And so I did a bit of transcribing work for her. She had a health and fitness podcast, and sort of manifesting and that sort of stuff. So I did a bit of transcribing for that, and was like, wow, I could actually do this. This is really cool. So I sort of sat on that for a while and did a little bit of freelancing here and there. And actually over this last lockdown in Melbourne, I was kind of like, you know what? I think I just need to do it. I think I just need to like build a website and like just do it. And I think the thing that stopped me so many times was like, oh, I don't have this element of it, or I don't know what I'm going to do here. And I'm like, you know what? No, I just need to put a website up and like get started and put myself out there. Even if I don't have everything sorted initially, like these things will come together. Let's just like start with a base. So that's pretty much where I'm at this stage. I've pretty much just put myself out there into the universe and just said, look, I'm just going to give this a go, see how I go and see where I go from there. So yeah, I'm very much at the beginning of this journey, but I'm excited, I think, because I've sort of pushed past that point that you get to where it's like, oh, should I do it? Should I jump? And I feel like even though it hasn't been a long time, like having made that leap makes me feel really like encouraged and proud of myself. So yeah, that's my story so far.
That's beautiful. And I hit legs as you started talking. I needed to go for a toilet break. I muted my microphone off air podcasting trick. Did you give away like your business? Like, did you give yourself a plug?
No, I didn't.
Oh, there you go. Nick, what are you doing, bro?
Plug away.
No, you're a good man. You're a good man.
Plug away.
Sure. So my business is called, and I think it's hilarious. It's Haylie Transcribes.
That's sensational. That is sensational. And you wouldn't have to change the spelling, would you? That's outstanding.
No, I thought it was pretty funny. It sort of came up as a joke with my husband. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to roll with this. I'm just going to go for it. It's great. So yeah, that's sort of how I came up with it. And next will be a transport business, or maybe I'll learn another language and translate. It just goes on and on. But yeah, so this business is a transcribing business. So for podcasts, for uni lectures, for webinars, for teleconferences, pretty much anything that's audio that can be transcribed into text, I can help you out. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Look, that joke, I'm allowed to at least have one, okay? Look, I reckon capital letters, Tran, and then lowercase. Yeah, very good. Anyway,
one of the things, what's the website? What's the website, Haylie?
Sure. So it's haylietranscribes.com.au is my website. I also have an Instagram and a LinkedIn and a Facebook.
Oh yes. And Nick will be proud.
I will do the linking.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
It's pretty incredible. That's awesome, right? And it's pretty incredible that you are doing that. And like the good thing is I work in marketing, right? And I can tell you now, the demand for content is shooting through the roof every single day, right? There's not enough content creator that can keep up with the demand of that content that's actually out there. I mean, you think about at the speed of which people consume content, right? You article writing, and the thing with creating content is like particularly written form. It makes it difficult because people find it difficult to write, right? Because there's an ideology that you need to have a more structured writing. So many people, like, podcasts are much easier. However, to things like SEO, when you talk about SEO, right? So you can probably actually leverage that as well. So you can take a podcast and turn that into a blog, right? So you can turn that into a blog, and that could actually be a service. And that's an SEO written blog, and if you just take the one keyword that they want to run with, you've got yourself a whole business model that thrives on people's most, trend, I guess, which is the 100%. SEO for the past, couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that I can see, within podcasting or, different sort of content platforms where, yes, there's so much demand for content and so much opportunity there when it comes to podcasts in particular, that you could be utilizing the things that you're talking about in the podcast or that sort of thing. And if you have a transcription of that, not only is it great for content and blogs and SEO, like you said, but it also opens up your podcast to, people that might have hearing impairments or that don't particularly speak English very well, and they can, obviously use those as well. So there's a lot of different benefits to having those transcriptions as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because now that we have you on the podcast, I'm gonna give you some free marketing help here as well.
I'll take it.
So what you can do is one of the pieces of content that would work really well for you is if you take famous monologues from films, like let's say find a film that's famous, right? Or just find any pieces of content that's already pre-produced, mostly films. I think that'd be the best idea. And take the video and transcribe it at the bottom and then share that onto your socials. People find that really interesting because they can read while they watch this monologue, right? And so that would be fairly interesting. I think people will find that quite interesting, and they'll spend a fair bit of time on it as well. You could use the same manner on TikTok as well, on Instagram.
Yeah, I was going to say, how would you execute that? But TikTok would be perfect because you could have the words over the top of the video, right? Like like Instagram doesn't have the space. If you need to scroll down on Instagram, you stop the video, right?
You could do reels on Instagram as well. So I would essentially do like a split screen. Half screen would be just like writing, and then half screen would be, and then it kind of highlights the line as the people speak. So I don't know, maybe you take the famous scene of The Notebook where he goes, "It's not that simple," and then you just transcribe that. It goes, "Not that simple!" Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark!
Yep.
So I think that would be fairly something that you could definitely do, and that'd be really, because very quickly people watch things. People are very wherever they can combine senses tends to be the place where people pay most of the attention. Hence, TikTok with music works so well because it's just music.
Sure.
Anyway, that's a little.
Thank you. I'll have to implement that, and it's fun because I can be creative with it too, and implement these different strategies. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, that's definitely like there's fun stuff you can do. So, good on you. I'm very excited for you to see where you go, and obviously we have a podcast, and I think we could probably use a blog as well, Lachlan. So if we're gonna grow that area as well, so that could be fun.
Oh, mate, you would have to sell me in that avenue, but I'm sure I would believe it as well.
Happy to help wherever I can, guys.
Yeah, totally. I was really curious as to someone unlike an egg who didn't just run away from the state. Just joking. Someone who's currently is still living in Melbourne. Like what's your overall thoughts on how, like, do you were you born in Melbourne? Like, is this been your place of birth? Like, you grew up here. This has sort of been where your heart's been your entire life.
I did. So I was born in Melbourne. I've been in Melbourne predominantly my whole life, and I lived in England for about 2 years, but came back just before the pandemic.
Whereabouts in England?
I lived in York in England, so it's about 2 hours north of London. So loved it there. Loved it. Miss it every day. So I suppose in answering your question as to where my heart is, it's partly here and partly there.
Yeah. Do you feel as though Melbourne's the most adaptable city to England? In Australia?
I think so, yeah. Look, Tasmania might be closer, but Melbourne
for weather, obviously, but
that's it. Yeah, no, I do feel like Melbourne is pretty similar to England in a lot of ways. Obviously, weather is one of those. But I do remember living in England and it getting dark at 3:30 and 4 o'clock and being like, wow, how can I do this? And now winter here feels like a breeze because the sun goes down at 5 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have an extra hour to when I had an English. Yeah. But I guess getting back to your question, it's being in Melbourne, like I do feel like my allegiance is here because it's been where I've lived in Australia, like predominantly. But there have been times that I have wanted to run away to Brisbane, and that's where my husband is originally from. And there have been moments where I've thought we've picked the wrong place. We should have moved to Brisbane when we could have before we bought a house. So.
Yeah, we live in Coffs Harbour right now, and Brisbane's about 4 hours away, Gold Coast 3. So it's like it'd potentially be where we would move to next. There's no plans there. But if we were to move, I feel, because being a Sydney boy, I still feel like a part of me wants to live in the city. And yeah, it's a good idea, but obviously there's so many different factors, and it's like the old saying, like, is the grass greener on the other side type
That's
thing.
it.
But what's it been like in terms of living through, kind of an international standard of lockdown that only Melbourne has really experienced?
Sure. It's really hard to describe. I was thinking about this the other day because I've got a lot of friends in Brisbane that I try and describe it to, but it's hard. I think the feeling is difficult. Like this last lockdown in particular, I had that same feeling that I had last year of like this drop in my stomach, like, oh gosh, like we don't know how long this is going to last. It's sort of a feeling of like, oh gosh, like I'm trapped or like I can't leave my house, and even if we were not in lockdown I'd probably be at home, but it's just knowing that I can't go outside or can't leave or can't see friends and family and that sort of thing is quite tricky. Obviously we're super blessed to have technology these days where we can obviously stay in touch with people and be connected without being in the same room, which is great. But
Totally.
It's just, I don't know, it's this feeling of kind of dread in a way. I don't know, it's tricky. Speaking of, apparently I'm the CEO of positivity, but there were definitely periods of, not feeling positive during lockdown, and, particularly working in the events industry, it's hard because we got to a point in Melbourne, I feel, that we were at 100% capacity and we could, everyone was sort of getting that confidence back up to go out and like, go to restaurants and go to events and that sort of thing. And, now we're sort of starting from scratch again where, we have capacity limits and it's really starting from scratch. It almost feels like, oh, when's this going to be over? And why us? Why us? Why do we have to go into lockdown?
We like probably 8 weeks we had it where we were at the stage where I remember driving to the petrol station or driving to the shops and being worried that I was going to be pulled over, or worried that I was going to be asked about what I was doing outside of home. And that was the only time that I really was, they never shut down beaches and that sort of thing. Like I would have been the first absolute joker. Coffs Harbour, basically all we're known for is the weather, best weather in the country, and then the beaches. Like I would have been there, I would have been jumping fences, whatever. But like, so the only time that I really felt disheartened, if you will, was the times when I was outside about to leave my house and I was like, I'm questioning whether I should leave right now. So I was worried, and I don't want to make it political, but for me, it's more like observational, and I'm just curious. Like, for example, like the next election comes, do you stick with the current people or do you want to change? Like, do you feel like these people, even though they made some tough decisions and emotionally they might have put you through certain situations, do you want these people in power, or would you rather
Daniel Andrews is the strongest leader.
What's your thoughts, without making it political? If that's
that's fine. Yeah, let's see if I can tackle
from a personal perspective, from a more human. Yeah.
Before we move on, I would like to say Daniel Andrews is the strongest leader in Australia. So,
mate, he's no, I won't say he's a Nazi. No. Continue, please. What's your thoughts? No, I'm just joking.
I go back and forth. Like I can completely understand why we have to go into why they choose to put us into lockdown and to sort of stop the spread. But then there's times where I'm like, I lived in England for a while and seeing how they're going over there and they're slowly opening back up. But I also, this is going to be a very all over the place answer, but obviously they've had a really difficult time over the last 12 months, but they're slowly opening up. Their vaccine levels are doing really well, whereas here I feel like we've been locked down, particularly in Melbourne. We've been locked down for 4 times over the last 15 months, and it's hard. You see small businesses suffering. You see people losing their livelihoods. I was trying to plan a wedding, and like that whole industry is just struggling, and that's just one of many. So I do think it's sad to see that sort of thing happening. I understand, there's public health implications and that sort of thing, but if we can't live, like, what's the point? Almost sometimes, like, that might be a bit of a strong point, but I'm like, oh man, like, how many times do we have to lock down before we can live our lives? I mean,
Australia has the population, the entirety of the country has the population of London, right? So, like, it's where, even though we have these big cities infrastructure, we have that all set up, like, our population, like, we're almost extremely, like, we're always lucky to be Australian because we live in such a beautiful country, but now more than ever, we have this perfect happy medium between, like, I understood the reasoning of copying the way other countries did things, but we are like in this perfect spot where we have so much space, and there are small pockets of our society that live close together, but we don't have enough people for us to be treated like Italy, for example, that have, again, but like, I don't want it to be political. It's more just like analytical for me, and just trying to actually reason through it all and that sort of thing. But hey,
for sure.
It is what it is, really.
Yeah, something that I find interesting is like, I wonder how they'll manage opening borders internationally, particularly
passports.
I think that'll be really interesting to see how they roll that out. So I want to go.
You'll have to get vaccinated because other countries, you have to get the COVID passport, which I understand. It is what it is.
Exactly.
Stepping in, right? And the way I see it, right, and I look at Australia, right, I'm very disappointed with the Australian government, right? I think we're a lucky country because of the place we live in, right? And a lot of the rules and regulations that were kind of protected and that we were cheering for were in place because they were being in place for years, right? Support things like, JobKeeper and JobSeeker and all those things. They were, fundamentally a part of our legislation that have been in place for, years, right? So in time of like crisis, the governments of, the federal government has to step in and whatnot, right? However, when it comes down to how this government handled this whole pandemic, I think our government did a subpar job, given that we only have like 30 million people altogether. So it's like, how are you struggling? How do you keep on screwing this up so badly? How are you not vaccinating people? What's wrong with you, like, overall? And I think it's an ongoing joke with the Victorian government. Fact of the matter is, Daniel Andrews could came out every week, said all this, right? It was nice, but if you really look at what was happening, no one can deny that government made huge mistakes, right? Catastrophic mistakes. We live in a country where you go 5 kilometers over the speed limit and they send you a $1,000 fine, right? And your firstborn, right? And so, and we live in, that's the kind of, that's how protected we are. How can we allow a government that basically caused us, almost 2 years of our lives, because they couldn't get the shit together? How can we just go, you know what, you're right, we'll let you back in? So personally, I'm very disappointed. From whether it be Labour, Liberal, I don't think it matters. I think overall the government failed the people. So yes, the big words out here.
Yeah. Look, and just to sort of summarize what you said as well, like, definitely felt that this particular last lockdown in Melbourne, it felt like we had come so far, like we got to the 0 cases, done everything, but it was a flaw in the quarantine system that and it felt like the fault of the government this time. So I think everyone was kind of like, oh, like, we're back in lockdown, but this is not our fault this time. Like, this sucks, That's probably the resounding thought of Melbourne for this particular last lockdown, was everyone was like, oh man, we've come so far and now we're back here again, and not by our own fault.
The justification of full lockdowns because they wanted to really, let's get to 0. It's one of the most contagious diseases in the history of humanity. We actually don't have many deaths. Like, we're really lucky, but we're like, I don't know. It's just like, I understand that, you don't want to take any chances. But are those chances worth, people's businesses, like people's livelihood? And like, I've been so lucky that it's not affecting me directly, but like, imagine
it's not even businesses though. It's not even businesses. I mean, one thing that I would like to say, right, is
mate, the fucking price of housing's not fucking going down, is it, mate? Just ask my dad, all right? He'll fucking rent for an hour. Let's get him on. No, just joking.
But one thing that I would like to say, right, is this whole era is costing us our years in our lives, right?
Yeah, so, more than anything, How quick, look, bro, it's nearly July. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So this is facts, right? When COVID-19 started, I was 24. I'm fucking 26.
You're 48 now.
I'm 26. How does that happen? I mean, it doesn't feel like a lot, but I feel like I'm in my mid-20s now. I was like,
yeah, totally.
So it's freaking mind-blowing. Anyway, the point is, in those past 2 years, I missed out on a lot, right? So it's costing us, years on our lives. And on top of that, let's talk about how hard is it, realistically speaking, to keep people into a freaking hotel, right? Haylie, how hard it's pretty easy to just lock people into a theater and just not open the door, we don't let the latecomers in, you know how it works. It's not that hard. We don't let the latecomers in until they're ready to go. It's not that hard. Just lock the freaking door.
Hey, Matt, I think the problem was that Abra was in security, so
That was
the Seckies, they went cheap on the security, mate, so they were into all sorts from the beginning.
All right, sorry. Anyway, I got too excited about that topic. I guess before we wrap up, right? I had a question, perhaps for both of you, right? What's the fuel of motivation that keeps you guys ticking? What's the fuel?
Wow.
You want to go first?
Yeah, totally.
Thinking chat?
Okay. So, like, obviously now, that's a beautiful thing. Like, I actually had a COVID baby, believe it or not. She was born on the 14th of July, 2020, so she's a COVID baby. So that's so my wife is number one. My wife will always be number one because as we got married, our souls became one. So we're technically the same person, just us. Like, I didn't make that, God made that. So it is what it is. So me and my wife are the same person. So she's number one. So providing security, relieving anxiety in terms of financial stresses and her future is definitely massively important for me. The second one is providing a great example for my daughter, being a good dad, teaching her how to develop and grow and mold in this world. Like, I want to be the type of parent that my dad had no idea about the advancements of technology and, oh mate, it's back in my day. Like, I don't want to be that parent. I want to be ahead of the curve, right? So that's my goal. Just, facilitating, being a good dad. So being a good husband, being a good dad, and then just being a good worker, being a good person, being a good friend, that sort of thing. So my motivation comes from my family, and then it comes from my friends and everything else. Like, there's definitely an internal drive as well, and an internal drive that I need to continue to grow upon. But if I don't first address those first two primary sources, my family, so my family and friends, my wife, my daughter, then my internal thing, it's not strong enough to survive by itself. It needs to be external. So that's kind of my answer, I guess.
That's awesome. I don't know how to top that.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. I should have. I made the wrong decision. No, that was a great.
Actually, yeah, you did offer, didn't you?
No, that's fantastic. I think I completely resonate with what you said in the sense that, yes, I have, like, my initial answers, like that internal drive. Like, I have an internal drive. I want to, I have these goals. I have these things that I want to do. But literally, if you don't have family and you're not doing it for, the people that you love, like, that drive eventually is going to wear off. Like, it's not.
Or you shift it somewhere else because you think it,
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So if I actually think about it a bit deeper and I open up a bit more, it is. It's for my family. It's for my husband now as well, very similarly, but also like for my parents, for example,
What's
who
his
gave
name?
up so Mason.
Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Mason.
And my parents, who gave up so much for me as well, and that sort of thing. So I think, it's the people around you, and it's more than that, just sort of like the superficialness of just like that internal drive, which is also like an amazing thing. And like, obviously you've got to, if you don't have that, it's difficult to start things. So I'm grateful for that too. But for the people around me and to make a good example. And I don't have kids yet, but I'm sure one day that will be, number two on my list as well. So yeah.
How about you, mate? You want to answer your own question? You can't dance away from that one, son.
Oh, well, now I know all the answers. I mean, I'm in a different phase of life, I guess, from you guys, right? Where you guys are kind of married, right, and have a significant other. Where I still stand on that more intrinsic drive, and a lot of my drive comes from. There's a huge aspect of where I care about the people around me, definitely. Family, friends, but I also care, like, I want to make a difference in the world, and most of my drive comes from the fear of dying insignificant, if that makes sense, right? So, I don't want to be insignificant, and to be significant, I don't have to, change, I have to move mountains. It really just means, even if it's something small, as being a really good example for, your family or your kids, right? Whatever, right? If you want to be an exemplary person, I think that's significant enough. I think my biggest fear is to, be no one, if that makes sense. Like, to die live an average life and die an average human, um, and it doesn't take much to set, I guess, like to be different from that. Like, all you have to do is, just keep your energy up by 3 octaves than everyone else, and have the passion to talk, passion to talk to people and say hello, and just talk to. I think that's kind of where I stand, and I'm sure a lot of that
Caring
would.
is more important than energy.
Sorry.
Caring is more important than energy.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm talking about.
It builds the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
energy I sometimes see from people is artificial. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of there's like a I personally, I've always had, like, everyone has a default, right? People like kind of sit at, right? Let's say, most people will sit at a 5, right? Especially after like work day. Over the years, I didn't want to be the kind of person who finishes work at 5 and goes home and watches TV and just does nothing else, because that's what a person at a 5 energy, or like 5, gives 5 shits.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so good.
I wanna spend that time. Like, I'm happy to sacrifice sleep if I get to, I don't know, hang out with you guys, like do a podcast, or like, just catch up with family. I think I
Yeah.
want to do that. That's at the moment, that's my drive. I'm sure that will change as I develop more of my relationships and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, and once you become a husband, once you become a dad, like, you are no longer not worth nothing. You have something more to live for. But, like, I've actually been wondering that recently, like, without the situation I'm in now, like, how would I go? And by no means your situation is devalued from ours because you have a significant other or whatever else. It's just your path that you've been
No, that's not what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong. I'm
totally.
doing much better than you guys.
Yeah. No, it is what it is. No, I just don't want. Yeah, like, as long as you know, and you don't know
absolutely.
that. Yeah, for sure.
I think, with the jokes aside, I'm happy with the human I am, and I think that's it. It takes a while to get to the point where you're happy with the person you are, and to feel like your voice and your being is worth hearing and worth existing. I think a lot of people suffer with the existential crisis, internal existential crisis of never thinking they're enough. I think I am, or I have been at a point for a fair while where I do think I'm enough. Like, if that, it's very existential.
Yeah, no, well, that's right. I knew you when you were 16, man. I know you now, so that's for sure. But
That's
you
it.
always had that innate desire to drive for something more, and it's super motivating for me personally.
Yeah.
So that's why I love you so much. One of the many reasons. So it is what it is.
I'm glad.
All right, great answer, mate. You just knocked it out of the park. I feel like we did. I feel like we knocked this entire podcast out of the park. Haylie, Tran, fantastic effort today, Haylie. You did so well. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Our pleasure. Give us a plug. Give the people a plug for all the millions of people who have continued to stay for the end of the podcast. Let us know where to find you, and where we can know more about you, I guess.
Sure. Yes. So you can find me on all the social platforms. You can find me on Haylie Transcribes Facebook, Haylie Transcribes Instagram, LinkedIn, website.com.au. Find me on any of those handy dandy platforms.
Sweet.
So
on that
good.
note, I might as well take that opportunity to plug ourselves.
Yes,
if you haven't checked out our
please.
website, check us out on the cleverdummies.podcast.com. If you haven't checked us out on Instagram, it's the Clever Dummies Podcast, and on Stitcher and iTunes, Apple
Stitcher.
Podcasts, Spotify.
That big boy shit, mate.
Big boy stuff, Stitcher, as well as Google Podcasts. Just look us up anywhere. I'm sure we'll show up.
100%. If you need a great subscriber, you know where to go. Let's go. Did you have something to say?
Me?
No, Nick. Were you about to say something?
Thanks
Beautiful.
again, guys.
All right. So good. This has been so fantastic. You were such a great guest. We really appreciate you coming on and pouring out your heart, sharing, yourself and just, making great insight and making us better people ultimately, because that's what these sort of conversations build within us. So thank you so much, Haylie. Thank you, Anik. I love you so much. You guys have a great week. Have a great day. Have a good night, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. God bless. This has been the Clever Dummies Podcast, episode 25, baby. Tell a friend. God bless you all. Have a great night.
Catch ya.